You might have heard of the rather big project we're involved since about a year, a bit more, where we're doing the new interbank clearing for Switzerland. And I don't want to go into detail what we do on a technical level. I want to explain you what this system does. And basically, have you ever wondered what happens on the 25th each month? Or, put in other words, if you don't know what I mean, how does my salary get from UBS to PostFinance? So what Netcetera does is, they enter a standing order at UBS. This means, pay the salary in online banking. This is quite obvious, but what now? What does UBS do? Well, they figure out the account which they need to put the money on is not Octolife. Is this the demo now? Okay, they figure out it's not the target account is not the UBS account. So what do? They're lazy, they don't want to think a lot, so they just send a payment to Swiss Interbank Clearing. And this is actually the company which we are working for. They take this payment, they do some validation. This is rather complex. For the ones knowing more, please excuse that I won't elaborate on the details, but it will do some validation, it will check whether the security and everything's right, and it will send UBS a receipt, telling them, well, we got your payment. What now? How can they transfer the money if UBS hasn't given them any money? Now, this is where the Swiss National Bank comes in. And you can think of the Swiss National Bank more or less as a bank for banks. And every bank has a bank account at Swiss National Bank. So UBS has an account, which we see on the top left, and PostFinance has an account, which we see on the top right. And these accounts actually need money on them. So if a bank doesn't have any money at the Swiss National Bank, the payment can't happen, because what's going on next is 6 checks. Well, is there enough money on UBS account to do this transfer? If that's the case, they will transfer the money, still the money, the amount Netcetera entered in the online banking from the UBS account to the PostFinance account. Once this happens, they will notify PostFinance, hey, you got money. And they will basically get the same payment information which was sent from UBS. So actually the arrows 2 and 6 are almost identical. Then PostFinance takes this payment, they fiddle around, they check security, they do other stuff, and they send a receipt again. Well, we received it. The next what happens is I get an SMS, usually around 11 o'clock on the 25th or 24th, and the result is I'm happy. And actually, it takes that much to do a single transaction. It doesn't matter whether it's 0.05 francs or 99 billions. It really doesn't matter. It's always the same. So there is, and all this complicated stuff up there is called real-time gross settlement. And this is actually not a term invented by SIC. That's well known in all countries. But Switzerland is a bit special. And that's why the subtitle is The Loop in Switzerland's Economy. So what's the big deal in Switzerland? The problem here, or the important or interesting thing is the National Bank, in our case, behaves like a normal bank. So within this whole system, the SNB is nothing else than a normal bank. This means if, for instance, UBS needs some additional money from the National Bank, they get it through the real-time gross settlement. In other countries, these transfers from the national bank to the banks and in the opposite direction, they work on completely separate systems. But in Switzerland, it doesn't matter whether Netcetera pays my salary or whether UBS needs some $1 billion in cash. Doesn't really matter. It's absolutely the same. The only slight difference is, and you see it from the size of the money bag, the Swiss National Bank, they can increase and decrease the value of their account at free will. So they don't need any, they can print money or they can shred money as they wish. That's the only difference. But it doesn't really concern our system. So, some interesting figures. That's what the system handles on an average day. So these are big numbers, and people are bad at knowing or at comprehending big numbers. So I tried to find some things which are more comprehensible, like if we would take 5 franc coins, you could circle the equator more than 2 times each day. Or, more Netcetera style, every 17.3 seconds, about the yearly turnover of Netcetera gets processed by the system. Now that's the only technical slide, and we're already at my last slide. This is now what we are actually doing. We are migrating this system more or less from an old platform, which is an IBM mainframe, written in COBOL, host assembler, DB2, to some mid-range, more common hardware nowadays, which will run on a HP x86 hardware, running SUSE Enterprise Linux. We have Oracle 11. We're using Java 7. We're using Spring. We don't have an app server. We have Java main apps running the whole stuff. Yeah, that's basically it. Any questions about how your salary gets transferred at the end of the month? Okay, then I hand over to Andre, I think.